Hello, dear listener, and welcome to another episode of Right Here, Right Queer. I'm Tess Carletta, and today I am joined by Sebastian Nothwell. Hi, Sebastian!
Hello, Tess!
Today we're going to be talking about Sebastian's book. Sebastian, would you like to give us a little bit of the rundown?
Absolutely. A Nest Within Briars is the third book in the Oak King Holly King series, and the second collection of short stories set in this world where the Fey realms and Victorian England begin to blend. It picks up where Tales from Blackthorn Briar left off, continuing the adventures of Fey warriors Shrike and Victorian clerk Wren, also known as the Oak King and Holly King respectively, and their friends across the realms. It features 5 short stories, including Bruises Bloom and Blackthorn Briar, where there is a moment's respite between Cemetery Gate and the Fey realms, and Sentiment, where Red and Shrike go to retrieve some potentially magical artifact. Bookseller and Bone-Setter, wherein Hullvardr has to reveal some Fey truths to Mr. Grigsby. The Unveiling of Daniel Durst, wherein Daniel reveals his true self to his guardian for the first time. And the surprise bonus 5th story, A Quiet Solstice, wherein the Oak King surrenders to the Holly King.
Now, what makes it a surprise story?
Because it wasn't promised in the original Kickstarter and I just slapped it on to the end anyway. As a thank you to everyone for helping bring this story to life.
Oh my gosh! How generous! So, all of those sound like really good stories, especially as someone who has been following this series. But what are you most excited to talk about with this book today?
I'm just excited to talk about it because after 3 long years of hibernation, Wren and Shrike are finally back in action.
Has it really been 3 years?
It has been 3 years since Tales from Blackthorn Briar. I've been working on a lot of things behind the scenes, but being able to share some of it at long last is a massive relief, and I hope readers are as eager as I am to dive back into the world of Blackthorn Briar.
We are, I assure you. Out of all the stories in the collection, do you have a favorite?
It is a toss-up between The Unveiling of Daniel Durst and Bookseller and Bone-Setter. With Daniel, I like being able to give him everything he deserves after going through hell. Every Daniel adventure is just like, what if something good and kind happened to this guy for once? What if he had a good day? What would that look like?
A rare find in a Sebastian Nothwell novel, I'll admit.
And with Bookseller and Bone-Setter, it's always a delight to give Mr. Grigsby just the merest spoonfuls of new information about the Fey realms. And we can get into some of the less than perfect parts of his relationship with Hullvardr because, while they are wonderful together, no relationship is entirely without friction and no partner is truly flawless, and Hullvardr has a habit of perhaps underestimating Mr. Grigsby and not being as forthright with him as he ought. And so this story is Mr. Grigsby finally learning what he should have known for a while now, and him and Hullvardr working towards a brighter future together. Plus Old Man Yowie.
So that's one of the stories that I did read, and I think that Grigsby gets a little bit more than a spoonful of the Fey world in this story. So I think that that's something for readers to look forward to.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
What are some things you loved about this book?
I love returning to these characters because I love it when a happily ever after isn't the end. Like, yes, Shrike and Wren are in eternal love, and that's never going to be in doubt, but that doesn't mean there aren't more stories worth telling for them. Other very interesting things can happen to a couple that aren't interpersonal drama or breakups.
What's better than a happily ever after than 2, 3, 4 happily ever afters?
A multitude of happily ever after.
What are some themes that you explored in this book?
Weirdly, one that came up that I wasn't expecting was grief, particularly in Sentiment and The Unveiling of Daniel Durst. And it's a little more obvious in Sentiment because the inciting incident for that one is Wren going back to his father's house for his milk teeth, and for him, this brings up the loss of his mother all over again, and the unresolved issues with his father turning him out of the house and disinheriting him all those years ago. And it's in facing that grief with Shrike's support that he's able to take the first steps towards moving through it and living with it rather than ignoring all of his feelings like a proper Victorian gentleman.
You know, I love a story with some grief in it for some reason.
I do know that you love a story with some grief in it.
I think that you did a really good job in Sentiment, as that is the other one that I read thus far, portraying that grief and making that something that is significant in Wren's life and not just something that you decided to bring up willy-nilly. Even if it was unintentionally, it seemed very purposeful.
I do prefer a purposeful backstory over a slapdash one whenever possible.
You know, so true.
And in the Unveiling of Daniel Durst, on the page it's very joyous, but behind the scenes it's me mourning someone extremely important to me whom I never had the chance to come out to. So it's kind of giving Daniel the experience I can never have, and that was healing in a way, so it has a special place in my heart.
That's beautiful.
Grief aside, there's themes of new beginnings, new possibilities, and the wonderful world that opens up to you when you can be honest with those you love. And queer joy, obviously.
It's the perfect book for pride in that way. What do you hope to accomplish with this book?
I would like readers to have a healing moment of queer joy to rest and rejuvenate before we get back out there into the fight.
I have no doubt that anyone who picks up the book will, in fact, have that sort of experience with it. Because that was my experience with just the 2 stories that I read, so I'm hopeful for that.
Well, thank you.
And for fans of Shrike and Wren, who are already eager for what comes next for our leading couple?
So the 2 things I know readers are wanting, because I want them to, are more stories with Nell and the Ambassador and more novel-length stories. So over on my Patreon at patreon.com/Sebastian Nothwell, I am 8 chapters into the next Oak King Holly King novel, where Shrike and Wren are questing through the Fey realms and Nell and the Ambassador are in the party.
Are you planning on releasing the whole book on Patreon?
Initially.
Ooh.
And then to Kickstarter.
Splendid.
If you read the first book and you were like, seems like these actions would have consequences, this is the consequences novel. And now we have to do a magical adventure about it.
Is this one going to take place after A Nest Within Briars?
Yes, they are being released chronologically. So the events that occur in Tales from Blackthorn Briar and A Nest Within Briars will have an effect on the next Oak King Holly King novel.
So we're not going to want to miss this one, is what I'm hearing.
No, not in the least.
Well, Sebastian, where can people snag a copy of this wonderful, glorious book?
You can find the ebook across platforms, including Amazon, Kobo, Smashwords, and anywhere else fine books are found. And you can keep up with future books at sebastiannothwell.com.
And for our listeners, you can keep up with our podcast at Right Here, Right Queer Podcast on Instagram, and follow along with our episodes wherever podcasts can be found. Sebastian, thank you so much for giving me a little insight into your book today.
Thank you so much for having me on the pod.